welcome you to my channel. So today we are going to be talking much more about the writers of the New Testament. We're going to be checking who wrote each book, when did they write it, and to whom did they write to. So the first, which is Matthew, the book of Matthew. Like I explained in my last video, that the book of Matthew, like the Genesis of the New Testament, I know it was starting with the generation, how that we are trying to link up Jesus with Abraham. You understand? So the book of Matthew was written by Matthew. So Matthew, they call him the evangelist. The others are Jewish Christians, so he wrote to Jewish Christians. So most scholars believe that it's written in the 50 AD. So some believe that it's written in the early 60s, and some 70s. But it is surely between the 50s, 50 AD to 130 AD. That was when St. Matthew was written, and that was when the book of Matthew was written. So we're going to be checking the second book, which is Mark. So John Mark wrote it, and it was written in 70 AD. It was written in Rome. The book of Mark was written for a Gentile audience. So the book of Luke was written by Luke. He's a physician and also a companion of Paul, one of the guys that worked with Paul. So it's between 60 to 70 AD. So that's the book of Luke. And for the book of John the Apostle wrote it. In his book, he called himself disciple whom Jesus loved. So it was written between 85 to 95 AD. So some believe that it was written in 90 to 110 AD. For those writing, the historian or scholars, sometimes they are not sure of the date that it was written. So they use occurrences around to judge when it was written. So some believe it was written 85 to 95 AD, and some strongly believe with their own reasons that it was written in 90 to 110 AD. It was written when the apostle, when John was serving in Ephesus, in the church in Ephesus. So the book of Acts was written by Luke. And it was around 60 to 90 AD. So some still believe that it was written around 110 to 120 AD. And the book of Acts was written to Theophilus. You can see that in Romans chapter 1 verse 1. So the book of Romans was written by Apostle Paul. And it was written in Corinth around 55 to 58 AD. It was written to the Christian church in Rome. 1 Corinthians. The book of 1 Corinthians was written by Apostle Paul, and it is to the Corinthian church, right? And it was around 55 to 56 AD. That was during his 3-year stay in Ephesus, actually. That was when he wrote the book of the 1 Corinthians. 2 Corinthians was written by Apostle Paul, and he wrote it from Macedonia. So it was in Macedonia, around 55 to 56 AD. It is to be after 1 year, let's say roughly after 1 year after he wrote 1 Corinthians, and it was with the help of Timothy that he wrote 1 Corinthians. So the book of Galatians was written by Apostle Paul. Some believe that it is 49 AD, and some believe that it is 50 to 54 AD. It was written to a church founded in the territory of Galatia in Asia Minor. Although the date that it was written was not certain, it's uncertain, but the school of thought believe that it was written, as I said before, 49 AD, and some believe that it was written 54 AD. The book of Ephesians is written by Apostle Paul, and it was written around 60 to 62 AD also. It was written while Paul was in prison. And this was around the time we go to Colossians and Philemon too. And so these 3 letters through the hand of Tychicus, accompanied by Onesimus. So the book of Philippians, it was written by Apostle Paul in 61 to 62 AD. It was penned when he was in prison. It is either in Rome or Ephesus, but it was when he was in prison. The book of Philippians. The book of Colossians was written by Apostle Paul also, the assistant of Timothy. That would be around 60 to 62 AD, while he was in prison in Rome. The book of 1 Thessalonians was written by Paul also. That is around 50 to 51 AD. He was in Corinth then. That was during his second missionary journey. 2 Thessalonians also was written around that time too. So it was in 52. It was written by Apostle Paul. It was 50 to 51 AD, and it was during his second missionary journey also. The first Timothy was written by Apostle Paul, and that was in AD 63, and was to Timothy. Second Timothy, it was also written by Apostle Paul, and it is believed that he was in prison, like a dark prison cell, just before his death in AD 63. Titus, the book of Titus was written by Apostle Paul, and it was written to Titus. And a school of thought believed that it was written in AD 63, and a school of thought believed that it was written in AD 66. Right. The book of Philemon was written by Apostle Paul, and it was written to Philemon in 60 or 61 AD from a prison cell in Rome. And it was the book of Philemon was written because of Onesimus, and because he did some things. He stole his master's maybe money or property, and it was a private message. It was not like to the church, it was to a man. So the book of Hebrew, the author of the book of Hebrew is not known. Why? Because a school of thought believed that it was written by Apostle Paul. Even it was really believed until 3rd century. It was really like the church have to really believe that it was written by Apostle Paul because of the writing was actually placed. So people believe that it was Apostle Paul. It was later countered that was not Apostle Paul, because when we check the book of the writings of Paul, we can see that anytime you want to start any book, you will start with introduction, and we can see in the book of Hebrew that there was no introduction, but then he ended with the submission that always occurs in Paul's writing. So that's why some still believe that it was Paul. Martin Luther King believed that it was written by Apollos. Some believe that it was written by Priscilla and Clement in Rome. Some believe that it was written by Paul actually, and transcribed by Luke. Maybe it's a preaching of Paul, and then Luke transcribed it. Some people believe that it was written by Barnabas. I'm a strong believer that the book of Hebrew was written by Paul, but the book of James was written by James himself, the half brother of Jesus, and it is given to the Jewish Christian. It was around AD 45 to AD 48. Now, First Peter was written by Apostle Peter. Some scholars had issue with the writing. They were the author of the book of Peter. They were like, it was not written by Peter because of some wording, like the way the book was really arranged and everything. Some intellectual factors that they felt like Peter is an uneducated man, so he could not actually write to that extent. But then you can see that the message of Peter during the day of Pentecost actually proved to us that Peter actually learned more things. And Peter is a very great man who actually wants to learn. So I believe that he will have actually learned more things. But then we can see that some people believe that it was even Silvanus. But then you can see at the end of the book, he wrote that by the help of Silvanus. So we believe that probably he has learned more, or with Silvanus writing, he was able to write more great things even in the book. So, and it was written to a community of believers that was scattered around Asia Minor due to persecution, and it was written AD 62 and 64, and it was written from Babylon. Second Peter, it was written by Apostle Peter also, but location and the dates is not well known. But then a school of thought believe that it was written in Rome. Second Peter, like a farewell message from Peter. So the next book is First John, and this book was written by Apostle John, and it was written around AD 85 to 95. And the audience are the audience of the book of John. These are the audience. So Second John was, it was stated that it was written by an elder. The scholars don't believe that it was still written by Apostle John, because Apostle John is an elder. He's still one of the apostles remaining that actually saw Jesus firsthand and his miracles and learned from Jesus directly. So believe that it was. But then, if not Apostle John, it is from a certain John. From a certain John, but the writer of the book of Second John is John. It's either Apostle John or certain John who has actually worked with the apostles, actually came and wrote it. And the third John was also written by Apostle John, and it was written to Gaius. It has three folds. For it to Gaius, to encourage Gaius. It was written to it was used to warn and condemn the behavior of Diotrephes. The third part is that he commend the example of Demetrius. He has a good testimony from everyone. So the next book is Jude, the book of Jude. And the book of Jude was written by Jude. And he's a brother of James. Jude was a very humble person. He's also a brother of Jesus. But then, in his humility, he did not count Jesus as his brother. So he counted himself as a servant, a born servant of Jesus Christ. And it was written around AD 60 to AD 80. The book of Revelation was written by Apostle John. And it was believed that it was close to 95 to 96 AD. Some believe that it was written earlier. That during the reign of Nero, that was when it was written around 54 to 68 AD. And some believe that it is around 81 to 96 AD. So that was literally the writers of the New Testament and when it was written and to whom it was written. So thank you for watching even to this point. I celebrate and I appreciate this. Thank you very much. Watch out for our next video. God bless you.